My hometown is dying, and I don't want to die with it. Okay, I know it sounds ridiculous to be lamenting on an internet forum while the world is melting around me. At the moment, it definitely feels ridiculous, but you have to understand. I mean, if we don't survive, which we almost certainly fucking won't, this story will be my town's last living record. And that's important to me. That's important to them. I have to let someone know what happened here, even if it's only you. The truth is obvious now. We're being exterminated. This town and its people are being erased. Fulton City is all but wiped from the collective subconscious already. All that's remaining are the survivors, the creatures, and all this story. I'll keep it going as long as they let me. I don't know why this is happening. I don't particularly care. I mean, not anymore. I just want to get out of here. This will be my last post from inside my childhood home. The only home that I've ever known. My brother and I have decided that we won't die here. Mark packed a couple of essentials in our school backpacks. The only thing that's remaining is this laptop and a frank conversation with my parents. I know they're scared. We're all scared, but I mean, we have to do something. Mrs. Hollow didn't come back last night. Alice only stopped crying long enough to tell the adults what she knew, which wasn't much. She fell asleep sometime around midnight, and her mother was in the room at the time. She was acting strange, though, she sobbed. She just kept repeating the same things over and over, and her face was white, like really, really white. I thought it was just shock over what had happened. The scratch, the attack, I didn't know. I didn't know. Mr. Hollow was inconsolable. We have to find her, Jack, he bellowed. Me, you, the boys. Alice can come too if she's up to it. We've got weapons, don't we? We've got a small arsenal here, Richardson. They're big, but the damn things are stupid enough. My father just shook his head and pursed his lips. Nobody's going out there. The hell they're not! I won't risk my family's safety, my dad insisted, especially not at night. Mr. Hallow's already red face turned a particular shed of scarlet. He looked like he might blow a gasket. Then he calmed himself and delivered the next bit like a sermon. Fine, he spit. Stay inside and cower. Lie to your kids. Keep them underneath the covers long enough and maybe they won't think that there's monsters outside. You raise your family how you want, asshole. But don't you dare tell me how to take care of mine. Mark looked down at his feet. I'd avoided my father's gaze. Alice, let's go. Mr. Hollow beckoned. Get what you've got. Please, my father interrupted. Just wait a minute. We're not staying, Mr. Hollow finished. And you're not convincing me to abandon my wife out there. You know me better than that, Jack. My father reached out and handed him a gun. We have extra. He paused. You'll need it more. Mr. Hollow nodded awkwardly. He took the pistol and stuffed it into his oversized coat pocket before turning and heading for the door. My mom met him there with some bread and some other things stuffed into a plastic bag. I mean, there wasn't much, but I think she felt that she had to do something. And she looked like she wanted to say more. But she didn't. Alice reached out and gave me a warm hug. She held on longer than expected. Right around that time, I really wished that she would stay. But because a piece of each of us knew what would happen next. And it all happened so fast. Thank you for the hospitality. Mr. Hollow shook each of our hands one last time. My father opened the door for him, without another word. The pair descended from the porch into a thick evening fog. Alice turned back to wave, and then she turned around and they were gone. And my dad shut the door. Dad shuffled back to the couch and collapsed. Mom waited by the door like they might change their minds. Mark perched himself at the window, and he looked over his shoulder and shook his head at me as if to say, not good. Just as an all-too-familiar clicking echoed from down the block, I could feel my body instinctively tensing. I had no true preparation for what came next. The sound started quietly before it seemed to fill the air. Soon it was as if 1,000 crickets suddenly invaded Fulton, and all decided to chirp at the same time. The ringing, awful cacophony that it was deafening. Somebody outside screamed. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. The chirping erupted even louder and seemed to devour their voice. My father held his head out into his hands. He motioned for us to block our ears. My mother started to cry. Underneath the clicking, underneath the screams, one word became clear as it was repeated over and over along in the distance. "Jeannie! Jeannie! Jeannie!" The gun went off soon after. "Jeannie!" One shot at first, then two, then three, four in quick succession. Somebody else started screaming. I knew that it had to be Alice. The pain behind the screen made my stomach turn. The gun went off one more time. "Jeannie!" The clicking dissipated, and the screams stopped. My father got up and quietly led my brother away from the window. My mom fell into a heap in front of the couch. I could feel the tears forming in the corner of my eyes, and I desperately fought them back. You knew that would happen, I accused my dad. Why did you let her go? He stared back at me. His eyes were cold. You knew that they would die, and you sent them out anyway! Heavy footsteps echoed on the porch. My mother couldn't control her sobs. My father dropped onto the floor to silence her, but it was no use. The two of them ended up in this awkward wrestling embrace. The pounding outside continued. "We killed them," Mark whimpered. "And they're gonna kill us." The footsteps left the porch and circled the house. We heard knocking from my bedroom window. Then the office window. "They're checking for weaknesses," Mark whispered. "They're trying to find a way in." The sound ascended to the roof. Heavy footsteps paced back and forth above us. The chimney kicked back smoke. It's too small," my father murmured. "They can't fit. Please, God, they can't fit." My mother wrapped her arms around her head. The knocking surrounded us. There had to be dozens of them, all checking various points of entry, all clicking their disturbingly loud song in unison. Staying quiet would be no use. They had to know that we were inside. Mark gestured for me to look through the peephole. I squinted and noticed something in the distance. It was still dark, but the sun started to rise on the horizon, and with it came a few tentative beads of light which softly illuminated the neighborhood. I realized then that I was staring at the home of Yappy Caesar, and standing in front of it was something that I hope to never see again. The creature stood at least 2 to 3 times the height of a man. It held itself up on 2 massive legs that bent wildly at the knee, almost like pincers, and behind it were smaller legs that trailed behind it sort of uselessly. I thought at the time that they looked like fins. One of the bent legs reached out on my neighbor's glass. There was a moment's pause. Their window opened up. I had to fight my instincts as a woman leaned outside, as if to greet the creature, which gently took her into its hind legs and rambled down the hill. The unrelenting clicking soon gave way to the scurrying of heavy footsteps. A massive weight lifted itself off our roof, and then the sun came up, and we were alone again. Okay, we have to leave today. We can't take no for an answer. We have no choice. These things know that we're here, and they'll get inside tonight. If I don't make it, well, you know what happened. But please, wish me luck. I feel better knowing that some trace of my town will live on in this forum. Signed, respectfully, since some of you have been asking if we live in the UK, on 12 Center, Felton City, New Jersey.